Hi, and welcome to this latest immigration law conversation video. Today's video is entitled Britain's Got Global Talent, and I'm here to discuss all things global talent with Sabina Kauser. Sabina is a partner, a corporate immigration partner at Ward Hadaway, and has recently been talking about this whole subject. So I thought, who better to get on for a conversation than Sabina? So, Sabina, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you out there who don't know Sabina, Sabina, tell us a bit about you and what you do.
Thank you for having me, Adam. As you said, I'm a partner at Ward Hadaway. I will be 20 years qualified in
Wow.
November this year. And over the last 20 years, I've done all types of immigration work. At the moment, I tend to specialize in more highly skilled migration routes, such as the global talent visa, skilled worker visas, and advising individuals and organizations on their strategic immigration planning. Going through the legal frameworks with them and seeing what opportunities they can offer their employees or what we can help individuals with.
That's fantastic, Sabina. Now, I don't want to reminisce because we're both getting old now. It sounds like it over the last 20 odd years of doing immigration
Yes.
law. Um, what about the global talent route then? Tell us a bit. I know you've been talking about it in a seminar recently. Tell us a bit about what it is and who it's for and why perhaps it's relevant today, particularly with a lot of changes going on.
So the global talent visa is designed for individuals that are either leaders, so they're already exceptionally talented, or they're emerging leaders, so they're showing exceptional promise. And that's in the fields such as academia and research, arts and culture, or digital technology. And the way that it works is applicants first have to be endorsed by a recognized UK body, recognized by the UKVI, in their field as having won either an eligible prestigious prize or that they have managed to get together evidence that shows that they can be endorsed in that field at that level, either as exceptionally talented or under the promised route. And the route is really ideal for those people that have got a proven track record or strong potential to contribute significantly to the UK's innovation, research, or cultural sectors. And for the exceptionally talented, they have to show that they've not just done that in the UK, but they've also done it in an additional country, which might be their home country.
Yeah, so quite a high level of talent there that's needed for this route.
Yes, and I was saying at the conference that we had, it's really important to make that distinction as well. So when we're talking about talent, not to confuse it with skills. So there's a lot of highly skilled people
Yeah.
who've learnt they've learnt their sector, they have are really good at their job. When we're talking about talent, we're talking about maybe what's an innate ability or they're born with it. You know, that friend that can run a little bit faster or who can do those equations without having to think about it, or their artwork is really good, it looks like the actual real life object. So it's something that they have that extra flair for, and then over time with their skill they're really able to home in on it, and they've got recognition for it through prizes or where they've done actual presentations or talks, etc. So it's just that extra bit. And the real benefit of this route is that there's no job offer or sponsorship required for it. Applicants can actually work either freelance or they can start their own businesses, and they can go down the employment route if that suits them. But this route also offers you a fast track route to settlement as well. So for certain people, if they can show they're exceptionally talented and they meet the requirements, they can actually get indefinite leave to remain within 3 years of applying for the initial visa. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and that you can bring your dependents to work and study in the UK, or you can just continue to apply for uncapped amount of extensions if you don't want to go down the ILR route. So I think it's an alternative that a lot of people have started looking into after the changes that have come in place in July.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of those benefits that you emphasize are so important. That flexibility, being able to continually renew, but then a fast track to ILR 3 years or maybe 5 years. Quite a cheap application fee. I think it's about £766 split between that endorsement stage and applying for the visa. So lots of benefits, and as you say, dependence as well. So you've mentioned this two-stage process with this endorsement first and having an endorsing body, and then making the application for the visa after that. Unless perhaps you're in that prestigious prizes category. Always makes me laugh reading the prestigious prizes because you need like a Brit Award or an Oscar. They are very
Yes.
prestigious prizes. My certificate for swimming 20 meters as a kid is not going to help me very much in relation to that. But tell us a bit about what people need to be aware of in relation to the endorsing bodies and endorsement stage, and then the application stage.
Yes, so the process, stage one is the endorsement. Applicants must apply to the endorsing body that's relevant to their field of work. So, for example, the Arts Council, if you're, doing visual arts, music, or theatre, or dance, or technician, which is if you're going down the digital technology route. And then even within those endorsing bodies, so if we use, for example, the Arts Council for an example, um, subject to the discipline you're in, it cascades into different organizations that feedback. So, for example, if, like I said, if it's visual arts, music, theatre, then it's the Arts Council. You'd still apply to the Arts Council if it's film or TV, but then they send it out to PACT, who deal with movies, etc. And if it's to do with fashion design, then they send it off to the Fashion Council, but it's all under the umbrella of the Arts Council. And it's very similar for the other endorsing bodies as well. And essentially, what happens is you make the application, again, following the guidance, making sure that you provide examples of the evidence that you've collated. For example, let's say if you're part of the arts, you're applying to the Arts Council, sorry, and you're in music or theatre, you might include any festivals that you've been at, where you've performed. It might be that you've had your own concerts. It might be that you've been, a backup singer somewhere, but you've got all of this to show. It could be links to the internet, it could be cuttings from newspapers, etc. It could be critiques. So there's no requirement that everybody has to love your work. It might be that you got a critique from somebody who didn't quite like it, but the fact is that you're recognized and it's there. So that's the type of thing that you'd be presenting. And then the endorsing body can take up to 8 weeks in order to consider all of that evidence, and then come back to you. And if your endorsement's granted, then you can go on to stage two, which is the actual visa application. But it's also of note that if, for example, your visa expiry date is coming up, then you can actually file both of the applications at the same time as well,
Yeah.
just to make sure that you're not overstaying. And I think the key thing is that it's with the actual visa application that all of the standard visa related things are considered, for example, suitability, immigration history, English language, etc. So that's part of the stage two process. And as you mentioned, if you've got a prestigious prize, then we skip the stage one and we have evidence of the prize and we go straight to stage two. And you also touched on the fee. So the endorsement is £561 and then £205 for the stage two actual visa grant. So it's quite cheap for such a high value visa that gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, 100%. I think that split in the money, that the main part is towards the endorsement. For me,
Yeah.
it speaks of the relative importance. It's that endorsement stage. Obviously, as you said, things like suitability, obviously they're important, and you want people at the visa stage to have that suitability in place. But it's collating that evidence in order to satisfy the endorsing body, and that endorsement stage is so important. Just if people have seen previous videos I did something on the global talent a number of years ago. That's changed now in terms of technician, because at the time I did my webinar on global talent, there was a separate application form that needed to be done for technician. From this August, that's now changed, and it's all the same process for the different endorsing bodies. And what happens, Sabina, if an endorsing body says no? Any thoughts on that if you fail at that initial endorsement stage?
Yeah, so if you don't make it through with the endorsement, then you can actually apply for a review of the endorsement, and they will look at that and consider the evidence that you've provided, and they can come back to you. And essentially, what the position is that if they come back to you, they can either maintain their decision, or they can accept that some of it maybe was incorrect on their part and put forward new reasons, or they can, take back all of the reasons they put forward in the first place and give you a whole host of new reasons. And if, for example, they review it and they change their decision, then obviously you get the endorsement. But if it is the case that they've come back and given you a new set or an additional elements on which they've refused, then you do have the opportunity to make a second application for reconsideration, taking into account the new items that they've added onto the refusal. And then I think it's also interesting to note that there was some question around whether you can have a judicial review, and there's a recent unreported case that's shown, because the argument was that, for example, Tech Nation isn't
Public body.
an official, yeah, a public body, but because it was found that because they're making a decision on behalf of a public body, then it does count, and therefore it should be one where you can apply for a judicial review. But obviously, we make people wary about bringing action like that and the costs involved and other sides' costs, etc. So I think it's good to get legal advice early before taking any action like that, because I think we have a pretty good idea when you're applying for a review, what they've brought up and if it's something that you're able to meet or not. So it's a good idea to get some early legal advice in before you take any such action.
Yeah, I think that that's so important. I think early stage, perhaps if somebody's a student in the UK and they're thinking perhaps a postgrad and they're thinking of going down that route in the future, speaking to somebody now to think about what are the requirements, what evidence do I need? And also the endorsing bodies on their website all have sort of very detailed guides of the sort of evidence they would expect in their sector. So hopefully working with them, the endorsing body, to get that information. Sabina, anything else you just want to tell us when you've been thinking and working
Yeah.
with clients on global talent? Anything else that struck you particularly and in this area?
Yeah, I've touched back on what you've just said about the guides. They are very, very detailed guides offered, not just the Home Office in terms of making those applications, but from the actual endorsing bodies themselves and what they're looking for. They are very, very detailed. And for example, if we talk about the Arts Council, they also tell you professions that are exempt, or so if there's any question, they don't just say if you meet this requirement and then you've got to guess if you do or not based on your skill. They actually tell you the certain things on there that you just can't apply for, they wouldn't be considered under that particular route. So I think it's really important to look at those guides very early on when you're making a decision as to whether this is the right visa for you or not. And I think the other thing really is, I mentioned the indefinite leave to remain, and I have mentioned that there's no salary threshold, or there's no sponsorship or job. But in order to get the ILR, one thing that's really important to note is you do have to show that you've derived income
Yeah.
from the field of work that you were endorsed in. So there's no salary threshold. It's not that, oh, you have to have an X amount or you have to be working at the date of the application. But you do have to show that during the course of the visa, you did make an income through the work that you were endorsed for. So I think that's really important to know. You can't just get it and then do something totally different or not actually do anything in that field. There are some boxes that we still have to tick.
No, absolutely. That's so important. And it's set out in, I've got on my other screen, the Home Office guide about being able to show that you earned money in your expert field during the time. And that needs sending evidence. For example, they give the example pay slips. Obviously, as you said, you don't need to be employed, but you need evidence that you have earned something in that expert field. And what I'll do for people, I'll link the Home Office guide and the relevant immigration rules below this video. And of course, links to you, Sabina. So if people want to reach out to you to find out more about global talent and how you can help people, how should they do that and how can you help individuals?
Yes, Adam. So I'm going to provide my details. I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to reach me on there, I also provide my email address and contact number. And just like as a takeaway point from here, a lot
Mm.
of applications are rejected, not because of the lack of merit, but because of the poorly structured applications. So, like I said, I would advise you to get early advice, and I do offer a free initial consultation just to have a discussion to see where you are and you have an understanding of what we're looking at. So there's no obligation to proceed, but at least we can have that initial conversation and see where we're at, and I could give you a little bit of a guidance in terms of the type of paperwork that you need to get together. And at the end of that meeting, we normally have a good idea as to whether there's work still to be done or whether we're, application ready or not. But yeah, you can reach out via my email or my contact number, or like I said, on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll put those details, Sabina, below this video so people can reach out to you. So I think what you say is so important. This visa has a lot of upsides, and especially with the changes to skilled workers, but it's not an automatic thing because there are those specific criteria of which you need evidence to get that endorsement. And consulting a lawyer such as yourself and then looking at those guides on the endorsing body's website it is so important in order to secure an endorsement to then get the visa. No, Sabina, thank you so much. Really helpful stuff today. A really interesting route and something that's been really helpful to have your practical expertise.
That's great. Thank you for having me, Adam.